Hi guys, welcome back. I'm doing another of these videos because loved the reaction last time. Thank you for all the nice words. Thank you for watching it. I did not know what to expect when I was starting this YouTube channel, but I just wanted to talk. I just wanted to reach out to an audience of similar minded people, people who like to create, like to take pictures, like to make videos, like to make art, like to make films, and I could share my experience and my point of view about certain things in photography and in filmmaking. Today's video is a little different because it's nothing to do with gear. And like I said, I would like to make as few gear videos as possible. I'm not going to tell you the thing that makes sense in my kit. I'm not going to talk about my bag. Rather, I'm going to talk about good shoes. And shoes might seem a little strange as an object in photography, but you'd be surprised how big a difference they make. I'm going to give you 10 different ideas and tips that'll make you a better photographer, and they are at zero cost to you whatsoever. Now, before I begin this, let me preface it by saying that I don't agree with a lot of what is said online about photography. A lot of it is made up to seem like it's an exclusive boys' club that shoots. In order to shoot good content, you need to be in some far off, exotic location, paid for, and that's also what a lot of people think that I do. Of course, I don't do that at all. At most points of time, I am either home or around home, shooting things that I know and shooting them again and again and again, and that theme will emerge from the video today. So, I'm going to tell you 10 ways to build a body of work. Now, why I said a body of work is extremely important because what I see a lot of these days is being focused on individual or single imagery. Now, you might make one shot that is really good, and those moments will come in time where you do that, and that adds a lot of value to your photography. But in my perspective, and the way that I have practiced this craft, learned about it, I have realized that that fades away very soon. It does not hold value in the long term, and when you look back at your own work, you don't see a common theme through running through all of these things. These are some things that help you build a body of work, no matter how trendy the straight out of your camera image is. Always think long term, always think in building a body of work, and slowly, if you keep practicing these things, you will build a data bank or an image bank that actually speaks of who you are. So you get to express yourself through photographs over a period of time based on what you shoot and how you shoot. So I'm going to give you 10 tips that make all of this a little easy and contextualize what a body of work means. All right. The very first tip. Going away from the exoticism about documentary photography, start with what you know. It's going to seem a little simple, but a lot of people ask me about, hey, how did you come across that story? Hey, how did you find that community? How do I need to approach someone with this great story that I have some 3,000 kilometers away in this exotic location? And do you think a photo editor would be looking out for it? Trust me when I say this, most stories have been told. And there are very few unexplored parts of the world right now. We are not the pioneering boys club of the early 1900s that set out to make a magazine about like National Geographic, which spoke of these undiscovered lands. Most stories are known and most photo editors know about these stories. You will not be the first person telling them that. If you do find a story like that, then great. Good luck finding a magazine with the budgets to produce it. But a story is not unique, but in today's day and age, with so many different narratives and so many different points of view, the way you tell the story and your point of view is more important than the uniqueness of the story itself. So rather than going off to an uncontacted community in the middle of a forest or in the desert, start at home. Look around the people that you live with, look in the communities that exist around you, look at the lives of these people, look at how different or how similar they are to yours, and start making photographs. Do not wait to open your camera bag in order to go to an exotic location and only then start shooting. Start shooting at home. Start with what you know. A lot of people that have inspired me have done some beautiful work right in their own backyard. One of my seniors from journalism school and now a Pulitzer winning photographer, Anushri Fadnavis, is a wonderful female photojournalist from India. And one of my favorite stories, and a lot of people know her before she joined Reuters, for the ladies' compartment in the Mumbai local train. I think it's something that happened along the way, but being able to observe her point of view with all of these brilliant, colorful, full of life individuals that she came across in her journeys became a small snippet of the city itself. And while she was doing that, while she was building that series, while they were independent photographs, I think the story, the larger story of women in a train, built the kind of work that she does right now. And I don't think it needed any extra effort rather than the regular commute that you make home. So there are a lot more stories like that which begin at home. It just requires a unique point of view. I'm going to try and give you examples of each of the points that I'm talking about and how some of the best photographers that I know have incorporated that into their daily lives and have made some of the wonderful work that they have. Now, the second one is, what is your question? Now, it's important because there needs to be a problem statement for your photography. Just like you sit down with a client and they tell you that, hey, this is a brand and this is who we want to sell to, and this is where we're stuck. This is how we do not know what to communicate. Think of your photography as a client meeting. Think of that body of work as an information that you want to put across, but you can't be verbose and just keep talking. So think of what you want to say and how you want to say it. So what is your question? Make sure that you know your question. Don't say, I am photographing this. Whatever your abstract thing is. It could be an object, it could be an animal, it could be a human being, it could be a community of human beings, it could be culture. Don't do it for the sake of doing it. Always ask a question. How did this thing come about to be? That's a question. That's a question of origin. How is this changing? Whether it's a city, whether it's a human being, whether it's animals, what is changing about that story? And what change are you documenting? So that question is very important. You may not get the question on day one. You might take some time to get to the question, but don't stop till you get to your question. Because at the end, when you put all of these images together, the answer to that question should be very apparent in front of you. That question is the premise on which your entire photo story is built on. So always remember, what is your question? Now this point is going to come back in a couple of ways throughout this entire video, but build an archive. By that, I mean, if you know what you're photographing and if you've been fortunate enough to get to that conclusion that, hey, maybe I want to photograph this, and it could just be an idea, explore that idea. Explore that idea in different times of day. Explore that idea in different times of the year. Explore that idea at the peak of its activity level. Explore that idea at the least activity level. If it's a market, see the busiest time of the market and see the emptiest time of the market. If you explore the same ideas in with respect to time, you're building up a very deep understanding and knowledge about the topic itself. Like I said, your topic could be a human being, it could be an animal, it could be an object, it could be a statue, it could be anything. But just by the virtue of having seen that particular subject across various modes of time, your understanding of your subject gets deeper, gets better. So if you're able to understand how you're going to photograph that thing, you're also able to get better answers to that question that you had asked earlier. So start building an archive. And in order to build an archive comes the very next point, is return often. Now I did cover this in the previous point, but the reason why I'm talking about returning back to your subject, to your story, is not just a deeper understanding of your subject, but also familiarity of your subject with you. No one owes you anything, no one owes you the time of day, no one owes you your great art project that you might want to complete at the cost of their time. They have no obligations to be in front of you, to be in front of your camera, and it's a universal truth. So if you build genuine connections that are built on empathy, that are built on kindness, that are built on clarity, what you're trying to do, if you communicate that well, your images will be a lot better. Now, there's a lot to be said about being a fly on the wall, and I think in some contexts that is extremely important. But what most people do not realize is that you being inconspicuous in an environment and the subject not paying attention to you is not on day one. If you visit again and again and again through different times, through different periods, through different junctions in life, whether it's yours or your subjects, they build a familiarity with you and your camera that they let life go by in front of you without being conscious about your presence. And that is the very golden tool of being a fly on the wall. Being a fly on the wall does not come on day one, no matter how esteemed a photographer you are. The moment you pick up a camera in front of a human being, they're going to be conscious. They're going to have questions about why is this camera in my face. They might be the subject of the most life-changing story, but they're not going to trust you with your camera on day one. So if you return often to that place, you build a relationship. It's very, very important in order to get the images where you apparently seem invisible. Now, there's a lot of people who have done some great work without being noticed, and one of my favorite people is Sebastian Salgado with Genesis. Now, this is just life going by and the world going by. But his larger series of images of people around the world, people working in gold mines, people working in oil factories, have the people doing their work in the height of action, and Sebastian Salgado is just one of them. Almost every other documentary photographer that I know has really imbibed themselves within the essence of the community that they are photographing. And without being able to do so, I do not think that they would have been able to make the images that they did. The next part is a little less to do with time, but more to do with the way you think about it. This is something that was told to me by my professor a while back. Edit like a writer, shoot like an editor. It's very interesting because I have failed at this very often. Usually when I'm in my selection or my editing process, I'm very verbose and I would like to add 100 images to a story, but I very well know that 100 images are not going to make it to publishing. So getting my last 5 images out of the 100 images is one of the most difficult things to do personally. But what that means is that a writer builds a story. There's an intro, there's an intro to the subject, intro to the problem, various parts of the problem, the journey of the subject to solve the problem, and then the resolution itself. You may really like a particular photograph, or you may really like a paragraph that you had written about that story, but if it does not make sense in any of these parts of the story, it needs to be sacrificed, because it's not adding to the higher value of the story itself. There's no point of it being in that spread. So edit like a writer and shoot like an editor. Always remember that your images at the end of the day have to be published in some format or the other, whether it's online, whether it's print. They always have to go and support text or have supporting text with it. Especially if you look at something like fashion magazines. Understanding the work of fashion photographers and how they work with negative space, knowing that their images are going to be published on a vertical spread like the cover sheet of a fashion magazine or on a double spread inside, they think about images differently. I recently saw talk about Annie Leibovitz's fashion work and why she's a master at what she does. Her composition is striking, her colors are beautiful, and her experience in the world of fashion and editorial photography is unmatched. However, this photo editor who was breaking down that work, I'll see if I can link that video somewhere at the bottom of this. They also explained how she thinks about texts. The text that could be either the name of the magazine, or could be the name of the article, or could be a double page spread where a small caption comes into the corner. She gives that room for text to fill a part of the image and also complete the image at the same time. That text carries the entire context of that image very well together, and there was mindfully space left for that text. Now that text has nothing to do with photography, but the fact that it was incorporated like that makes Annie Leibovitz's every image more usable than another person who does not think about text. Now this is just an example that I gave you when it comes to fashion photography, but it's also true for a culling down of images and trying to tell the story in more succinct ways. So always think of a photo editor. What is your establishing shot? What is the shot that really introduces your character? What is the shot that shows the problem in their life? And what is the shot that actually shows an emotional release? Make it like a story. Make your body of work into a tangible story. And if you keep at that practice, you start thinking of the story when you're shooting. Sometimes when you get an image and in your head, if you've done it for long enough, you'll be like, this is my opening shot. This shot explains everything I wanted to explain about my story. This shot is what could be a filler or could be the only vertical shot that I needed within a horizontal spread. If you start thinking of editorial use of your work, your final body of work is much easier to comprehend, is much easier to gather from an entire data bank of images. Now, the other thing that it also does is that it helps you bring together your body of work into more forms or more mediums. Bodies of work are often supposed to be revisited again and again and again in different mediums so that you understand the depth of what you have. Say you've shot something for a few years and now you want to bring it together. So make a zine, make a book, make a small layout. And once you start doing these layouts, if you've shot them with a sense of storytelling, it'll be easier to put that document together. Moving to the next point. Stay curious and be open to surprises. There's a reason why I misspelled this. I was actually just in a hurry. But a lot of the times, people who have been shooting the very same thing think that they are the expert on the subject matter. And that can lead you to being a little jaded. And being jaded is never good for a photographer. You're supposed to be quick on your feet. You're supposed to be observant. You're supposed to look at everything that happens around you. Making assumptions or saying that this is exactly like the 10 times I've shot it before makes you lethargic, makes you lazy, makes you miss the shot that you would have otherwise taken. So always be curious and always look for themes that support your main story. Say you're shooting a community of people, and the community of people has some very unique and different forms of cultural celebration, and you shoot that, and you've been shooting that for a while, so you know exactly what comes after one part of the celebration leads on to the second part. Maybe the second time that you're visiting or the third time you're visiting, you know the order of things, and you're going to skip a few things, or you're going to get a lazy shooting a few things. But at that point in time, it's very important to understand that a sense of lethargy has set in and focus on completely different things. That particular year, when you don't feel like shooting the celebration, why don't you shoot garment? Why don't you shoot the way people dress as a way of talking about the community? It's adding a different perspective onto the very same thing that you knew very well. So you're going to make different kinds of images, and you're also not worried about missing out on the celebration, because you know at the peak moments of celebration, you've done it enough number of times that you're going to get that shot. So make sure that you're always creative, always curious, and always open to surprises. I don't think the next one should be said, but I'm still going to say it. Be respectful. The world does not owe you a photograph. No one is supposed to be in front of your camera. No one likes being photographed. The least you can do is have a conversation and land up in front of them with a smile. I used to hate drinking tea. I was not a chai person. But over the years, since I started photojournalism, I have had more tea than coffee in my life. And the only reason I've done that is because within India, the very first icebreaker in a conversation usually happens over tea. So whether you're in the run of Kutch talking to nomadic pastoralists, or you're in Kashmir and talking to the locals about the lack of tourism or the security situation, they will always offer you a cup of tea, because that small talk conversation would be much better if it was being had over tea. So the number of cups of tea I've sat down and had simply to open up the conversation, simply for them to be comfortable in my presence, is more than I can ever count. And over the years, the idea of tea has actually associated itself with conversations for me. These days, when I meet someone new and I want to know more about life, I ask them for 5 minutes of their time over a cup of tea. It's very, very important to be respectful, be kind, be empathetic, especially in situations where people are not having the best day of their life. You coming in and taking that picture may be for the greater good of your photography, but I don't think it's adding any value to the world. Someone told me very recently that the only thing that they look forward to in a person that they work with is that the person is a nice person. Everything else can be taught, photography can be taught, filmmaking can be taught, but empathy and kindness are extremely rare values and just are inseparable to being a good photographer. This also brings me to the idea of consent, and I think a lot of macho documentary photography has been without consent in all of these years, and I've seen the conversation of consent and appropriate behavior during a shoot come up a lot in the last few decades, and I think it's for the better. There will be some uncomfortable conversations where some of the greats and some of their works will be disregarded as disrespectful, and you might have looked up to that work at some point of time, but it's okay to shed the pedestal and just bring down some people because you do not find their work respectful anymore. Now the next point is build with time. A lot of people take single images of whatever they're shooting, and over time these single images mean a lot. But if you continue doing all the things that I told you about, like follow up, go in different times of day, and you build it over time, the idea of the story evolves into a deeper, more meaningful process. Now, the idea of the story is something that may not be apparent to you on day one or even 6 months into the project, but as you give it more time, how you want to portray it, what the story is, what the question is, what the possible solution could be, and what the end date of that project is, will become clearer to you. But there is no way to arrive at that conclusion when you start out. The only way you will get that answer is by arriving at the end of that question, by doing that with enough amount of time that has passed. I start with my curiosity. I start with my need to know something about a person or a community, and I do my research, I dive in, and then I just let it be. I keep revisiting again and again and again, but I do not think of the final medium that it will be put out on. For me, it is important to put my head down, to think about images, to think about the best kind of imagery that I can do with respect to the story, and not expect an outcome. If I start thinking about outcome very early on into the story, my reasons for doing the story will be diminished. This is something that I've learned over the last few years, and also something that I have revisited older stories for, in order to see if I think about them differently now. The stories of a photographer or a documentary photographer also change with the photographer themselves. As you grow, as your sensibilities mature, as age catches up to you, your way of thinking about the world and looking at the world also changes. So the same way that you approached that particular story will change over time. So revisiting that with time adds a lot of value to that story. This is my most favorite point of today. Keep notes and wear comfortable shoes. This is where my point of wearing comfortable shoes comes in. I'm not asking you to buy a new pair of shoes. I'm simply asking you to identify which shoe of yours is the most comfortable, that allows you to be out on the street 12 hours, 16 hours a day, being able to make images without getting a shoe bite. Which shoe allows you to walk for kilometers without getting you exhausted. The less you have to think about your clothing, about your shoes, about comfort, and about exhaustion, the more time you can spend making images. And you're not just making images, you're also making images with a purpose in order to build a body of work. So take notes. There are lots of people who take notes in completely different ways. It's very important to know caption writing. Caption writing is basically answering the few questions that are there when you make an image. Who is in the image, what they are doing, why are they doing it, where did they do it, and how they're going about it. Now, caption writing is pretty easy. Even if you write this much information on an image of yours, you actually have a lot more information. You can take it a step further. You can record little bits of sound, you can record little notes of personal observation, and over time you will realize that these things that you have observed have added value to your documentation. Now I'm going to give you an example. I'm going to link it below. There's one of my favorite documentary photographers from Magnum, Chinchi Chang. I met him in Delhi Photo Festival in 2015, and he displayed a body of work that inspired me in many ways. It's Chinatown in New York. Now, he's been documenting Chinatown and Chinese immigrants for the last 25 years. He's documented people moving into America, people moving back home to China. Every time he took a picture, he also documented a few clips of ambient sound at that point in time. I have seen a more updated version of it, but I think YouTube has an older version of the very same video. I'm going to link it in the description below. It's just images with a little bit of ambient sound. But the layers and the levels of information that adds to the story is inexplicable. It's just, it really gives you an environment, and it gives you the set and the setting within which that story takes place. So take more notes and wear comfortable shoes. You have no idea the amount of exhaustion and effort my one pair of boots have served me over the last couple of years. I still wear them every time I have to go out. I still wear them when I know I'm going to be in unknown territory, unknown terrain. They still work great for me. I think over the years, the only thing I've added is add an insole for my flat feet, and that's it. It helps me stay on the street. It helps me stay sharp. It helps me be there for longer without worrying about my own personal comfort, and it helps me make better images. And the last one, organize for the long run. This is extremely important, and I don't think you get to this point till a few years into your work. This NAS drive that you see over here is 36 terabytes of data that's been scrambled through all of my years and years of work. This is my archive, while I also have multiple hard drives filled with data and backups, and some of them are still connected here, you can see. So what do I mean by organize for the long run? Every time you go shoot, make the folder of that particular date and the area. It'll be even nicer if you can go into Lightroom, make your edits with all that information within the edits itself. At this point in time, the organizational data of a lot of software plugins into editing room suites have become absolutely brilliant. You can add keywords to your images, so later when you're looking for something, it becomes easier. But having your archive accessible in order to go through it whenever you please is an incredible luxury. While most film photographers used to have massive banks of negatives that they could revisit, enlarge, and print whenever they wanted, they also always had contact sheets. Contact sheets were their way of archiving everything on a roll on one piece of paper. And going through contact sheets was a lot easier than going through multiple rolls of film and negatives. Similarly, build your archive in such a way that it's always accessible, it's always easy to go through, and if you have any information about the year the photograph was taken in, the month it was taken in, the area that it was taken in, and all of it has been documented within the file name or the folder name with all of these details, you will find that image in an instant. Otherwise, that image will be lost in a data bank of your archives, never to be seen again. And if an image is not found, it's not good for your body of work because it's not going to appear in it. So always build for the long run. You don't know where this image is going, or you don't know where this story is going, but think of it that you're going to do this for the next 10 years, and 10 years later this image might be extremely important. So start for it today. This is what I have for being a better documentary photographer and filmmaker. I would love to hear more from you. I'd love to hear little tips and tricks that you practice in your daily life while making images. Now, I understand that this might not be applicable to a lot of other people who do not practice documentary photography, but most of what I said is also applicable to, in general, building a body of work. What I see a lot of people doing is building individual images which are great for that idea that they want to execute at that point in time, but may not be the best for their career going forward. Small side note, if you can afford it and if you have the space for it, always shoot in RAW. This is from a personal experience where I was making a book and I realized some of my oldest images in that book came from a time that I thought I did not need RAW, and I shot a good JPEG image. That JPEG image, years later while making the book, is what cost me all the color and the edit and the grade I could have done with my today's sensibilities. That's actually the reason why I wanted to make this video, to help you not make the same mistakes that I made starting out. So I hope this video brought some value to you in life, and I will see you soon.